Howdy, Ags. Welcome to Aggie Growth Hacks, the podcast sponsored by the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship at Texas A&M, where we're dedicated to helping entrepreneurs improve their business, connect with other Aggie entrepreneurs, and support one another. I'm your host, Greg Martin, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2001.
And I'm your co-host, Chris Hunter, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 1998.
Whoop! Well, we got a little story for you, Ags. If you are involved in entrepreneurship at all in Aggie land, then you know our guest today. Jose Quintana, Fighting Texas Aggie class of 1986, is the founder and president of Advent GX, a company that matches Jose's enthusiasm for entrepreneurship around the world by making connections and growing meaningful businesses across the globe.
So pass it back and listen up to Jose as he shares some good bull.
Welcome back, Ags. As you can tell, if you're watching this on video, we are in a different location. So first off, I want to say, Jose, thank you for hosting us at this amazing, beautiful location, Grand Stafford, downtown Bryan. We are in the super cool green room. I guess we're part of the Cool Club now, but thank you so much, Jose, for having us. Thank you for sharing your story and willing to introduce yourself and your companies to Aggie Growth Hacks.
Thank you very much, Greg. I really appreciate you guys coming to our historic downtown, our beloved downtown.
I think we can get used to this. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe we need to work out a sponsorship deal in the future. You know, this is a heck of a lot better backdrop than my pictures hanging on my wall. But
well, and usually we have a bottle of bourbon, you know, or whiskey, and I forgot to ask. But we can pause and then scramble. And
we'll be right back, Ags. No, just kidding. But seriously, so Jose, let's just jump right into it. You were one of the first entrepreneurs that I met when I came back to Aggie land about 8 years ago now. And you quickly became known in my life and in this area as a serial entrepreneur, someone that loves business, loves empowering entrepreneurs, lifting one another up. And that's what's so cool about Aggie Growth Hacks is that we are all about connecting and supporting one another. Tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial story.
As you will notice, I have a heavy accent. I'm originally from Mexico. I've been observing this, you know, a lot of the great entrepreneurs, not that I'm great, but a lot of the people that I work with actually come from other countries. And I think part of that is because we get to really appreciate what we have in our country here in the US. And we don't take that for granted, you know, and having the liberty, the freedom to pursue our dreams and knowing that, you know, there's not going to be the level of corruptions that some of us have experienced in other countries, you know, to a great extent, you know, justice is served. And so, you know, you have an even playing field. Everybody has the same opportunities, the same chances. And so that's what kind of, I think, prepared me in some fashion to become an entrepreneur. But I can, you know, share with you kind of the rest of the story if we have time as we progress in the interview.
Well, how did you jump from being a computer science major at A&M, class of 1986?
Correct.
So did you graduate and start your first company?
Yes, that was one of my biggest mistakes in my life is not working for a corporation first. But I think you know, sometimes you have to take on challenges and convert them into opportunities. So what really happened is that, I just kind of give you a brief story of my background. Like coming from Mexico, my intent, I love science and mathematics and all that. But my intent was to come to A&M and play football. I wanted to be a linebacker. And I remember our semester in Mexico ended at the end of the year, calendar year at that time. So I came in kind of under a very cold weather conditions, and I didn't know about anything other than usually you just show up and apply to be part of the team. So I show up in January and just wanted, you know, walk into Calfield and say, hey,
it's all about the 12th man, right?
Yeah, I just well, you know, sadly, so if I had known that we had a core program, you know, a military program and so on, I would have enrolled. But I didn't know all those things. All I know is that I had been, when I was 14 years old, to a football game where the Aggies played UT and the Aggies won. And so the person that brought me, he was a former athlete, and he took me down to the field and introduced me to the coaches. And I remember looking up into the stands and thinking, I have to do whatever it takes to be back here one day and play football. And I went back to Mexico, and I enrolled in a 2-year high school that had, to get into that high school, you had to take the SAT. It was very fairly straightforward to get into A&M at that point. So I did that. I applied, and so I arrived here. I think I was 16 and a half years old.
Wow.
And there I was, by myself. And it was quite a learning experience. I had to grow up fast, especially because my English is bad now. Imagine, that many years ago, it was a big challenge for me. But so I turned 17 here at A&M, and I was able to enroll in some of the science and technology courses because I didn't have the English to really enroll in like history or political science. It was quite a challenge. And so I took all these advanced, math and so on, physics, chemistry classes. But then I had to take English as a second language at the same time. And the contrast was so interesting. It was a lot of, someday over a beer, I'll tell you how fun it was. But what that gave me is that kind of will to make my own opportunities while I was here because of the support. The university, one of the things we have as a legacy at A&M is that we're so welcoming. We're part of a big family.
Yes.
We're not, to a great extent, we're not segmented into, groups or races. We're all Aggies, right? And so I took that at heart and really leveraged that, the fact that I was part of a bigger family. But I never got to attend like fish camp or those things. So I had to learn about our traditions, right from the start. Well, fast forward, I wanted to kind of have my own money and I took a job at the library, shelving books, and nothing exciting, but man, I was making money.
Making money.
Awesome. At the same time, I took a job. I tell people I used to work for the Houston Chronicle, but I was delivering papers, newspapers at the time. And then one of my friends asked me to partner with him to sell T-shirts as a business. So we pull our money and sell a ton of T-shirts. And that was kind of my first kind of, entry into entrepreneurship. And after a lot of different trials like that, when I was a senior at A&M, I applied only to one company for a job, and that was IBM. And IBM gave me a job offer, so I was so happy about that because IBM in Mexico and worldwide is super well known. And
right.
I thought I have it made. And then about a month before I show up in Houston for my job, I get a call from their HR department, and they told me, Jose, we made a mistake. You only have a 2-year work permit. You don't have a permanent work visa.
No.
So, or permanent, residency. And so I was just, when I was having that conversation, I was, very polite and say, I understand, but, in a year, probably going to be, married or something. You never know.
Yeah.
I said, well, we cannot, our training program is a 2-year program. So we cannot really, move forward with this.
Oh, wow.
Anyway. So at that point, I had to make the decision of going back to Mexico or stay here and open my own business. And I made the terrible mistake of staying here and opened a computer consulting company to compete against IBM. So
if you can't join them, beat them.
Yeah, my life, I will call that life 1.0. So I started a consulting company, and at the beginning it was super hard. I didn't know how to sell. I had a really good, technical skills, computer science, software development, mathematics, all that. I learned accounting because I couldn't afford a bookkeeper. I learned all these things that I needed to learn, but marketing, sales, those were very tough for me. So I did a lot of free work at A&M, went lab to lab and offered my services. Just tell me, hey, give me the hardest problem you have, and if I do well, you pay me or you hire me back. And that opened the door for computer consulting. I started specializing on data acquisition from scientific instrumentation, basically. 2001, I retired from that life, and I'm in life 2.0.
Love it. So how did you make the jump from there to now where you're at now, like with Advent GX?
So in 2001, right around 9/11, actually I was a little before them because I was 39 years old. Yeah, I decided to just kind of close that part of my life. I kept some clients, and so I had revenue, but I was able to spend a ton of time with my kids. I think I went to 95% of the football practices of my son. So my son, at the time he was 13 years old, maybe 14 years old. And he was like 300 pounds and, right tackle, doing great. So I went to a lot of his practice. I would take my computer and work Back then, the laptops were huge, and no connectivity. But I was able to kind of do a little bit of work and be at the football practices, as well as I was able to take my daughter to horseback riding lessons and spend a lot of time with the kids. And then in 2004, working with the then vice president for research at A&M, Dr. Dick Ewing, he passed away, I think 10 years ago or more. But he asked me to help put together a technology commercialization strategy because the university had lost a lot of funding from the state and the federal government. And so he wanted to leverage our sponsored research and convert that into funding opportunities. So I worked pro bono on that. And then he asked me to kind of prime the pump and be one of the first startups to help technology commercialization. So AdventGX was born at the A&M Research Park.
Okay.
Kind of as a spin-off.
Yeah.
We are completely independent now, but at the time we had an agreement that the university could acquire a small percentage of our company in exchange for support services.
Interesting. Okay. And looking at your website, you've got all sorts of things that AdventGX does, right? And maybe we can get into that here in a little bit. But one of the things that I always really, really love to figure out, right, is how does A&M play into that entrepreneurial journey? Is there one thing that you learned at A&M, right, that helped you with that entrepreneurial journey?
That's a really insightful perspective that you're able to kind of observe that through the different interviews that you had. I really appreciate you observing that and noticing that. My first company was more of hey, I'm going to take the skills I have and just try to leverage that to make money. And my objective was very driven initially about surviving. Then after that, about creating value and creating wealth and those type of things. With AdventGX, it was just a different life, different purpose. I wanted to be more about community and economic development, about helping others. So the entrepreneurial side is very well aligned with those type of values when you're in a supporting position, right? When you're the entrepreneur, man, you need all the help you want. But when you are helping other entrepreneurs, it gives you a really good advantage to have that perspective and a little bit more maturity. And, having the scars of, sometimes not sleeping because you are not going to make payroll, and making those hard phone calls to vendors and assigning priorities and just making it work, having that passion and obsession. So the jump into AdventGX, it was more about listening to the needs versus listening to my skills, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I wanted to see, well, how do we help communities? I love small communities. And I knew at the time that there was a big challenge in being able to support small communities from an economic and community development perspective, because a lot of the tools, a lot of the protocols, best practices out there are really developed for bigger cities, like Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, New York, Chicago, all those. So you cannot really apply those same models and help a community that is, 10,000, 15,000 in size, population size. You need to have tools that are very well customized, more pragmatic at times. And the fact that, I don't know if you come from a small town, but those places, the economic development director happens to be the chamber president and the Main Street coordinator and the Rotarian. You have to wear so many hats that you need to make it easier for them because they're not everybody stands up or steps up to serve those communities. And so that seemed like a great opportunity, as well as a lot of work that I've been doing with the tourism department at A&M. I just changed names with it. Back then it was called the Recreation Parks and Tourism Sciences department. Now it integrates hospitality, which is a great addition to the program, because it is. I think we're going to explode with that. Or we were already the number one, I believe, humbly, as a university, the number one ranked institution when it came to tourism research. So, I was able to see our backyard being at the research park at A&M.
Yeah.
We had, now it's, $1.2 billion of yearly, sponsored research budget. At the time we had, let's say, half of that. So all the human power, all the know-how. So instead of doing a technology commercialization play, it was more of a knowledge or know-how commercialization play. And that's why AdventGX, a lot of people ask me, Jose, what do you do? A very easy way to explain that is we do community and economic development. Now we have different components there that we'll dive into if we have time, but one of them is our technology and business incubator.
Okay.
We have helped hundreds of companies. We started at the research part, but when we moved to downtown, our incubator, then we started to grow with all these different types of, we do not specialize on a vertical. Like we do have a lot of high tech, medical devices and software, a ton of software companies, but we also have nonprofits and cottage industry type of entities, because our model is to learn and develop the tools to support incubators that can be effective in small communities or international places.
Okay.
And now, the last 20 years have been amazing. Now we have a lot of international work, and I think that's going to be our next kind of where I'm going to be spending a lot of time.
So, Jose, through your work at Advent GX, you really get to see a lot of different companies in different stages. Most of them probably relatively early, but the entrepreneurs have drive, have passion, have knowledge about doing something, but maybe not business savvy. And so I can see how that really relates to you from your, Entrepreneur 1.0. What are some of the challenges that you see entrepreneurs consistently having that Advent GX is helping to build a community to support?
I think when it comes to challenges, a lot of those challenges can be managed, the core values that we advocate, right? But when it comes to handling the stress, that's kind of a different set of avenues that you need to pursue. I personally, for me, faith, my Christian faith really helps me drive or thrive in that aspect and tackle on very, very difficult problems, because at the end of the day, I know it's not up to me. It's great to have the best partner in the universe, right, at your side, opening doors, closing bad doors. It's just very comforting. We obviously we serve everybody. They don't have to be Christian faith, but they have to have that faith on something bigger than themselves, because we're just humans, right? And that manifests in how your community comes around you and helps you. And the worst times usually turn into the best times. And going back, I'm a big believer that culture, trumps strategy. But our strategy development methodology is where we invest a lot of time to be able to have not only a good roadmap that is going to change, starting right from the start,
right? But
having the fundamental components in a way that you can dynamically move things around. So that if you did a good job in your research, market research, competitive analysis, all those different things, forecasting and all that, then you can react pretty fast and adapt. And then on the culture side, yes, that's important. But I also know that the culture has to have a very strong set of fundamental core values, right? And so we have those two sides, and then the culture develops. Every company has to have their own culture in a way, right? And usually that culture is an adaptation of a good set of core values.
That's interesting that, you could have given a really nerdy entrepreneurial answer to that question, but it was about flexibility. It was about core values. It is about building the team. I think those are themes that we've heard throughout all of the Aggie Growth Hack episodes. So let's dive into your core values. What are the core values that you have that guide you through great times and through tough times?
I have personal core values. I make sure that my core values are our company core values. I make sure that to the extent that we can, we use that to filter who we engage with from a incubation member perspective, vendors, investors, everybody. And they're very simple. They're just 4 core values. 3 of them are part of the kind of the American core value dictionary, and then the last one is something that comes from a perspective of, in my case, faith, but it doesn't have to be, digested that way. So, if you don't mind, I'll share them.
Please.
With you. So, our first and top core value is integrity and trust, because without integrity, nothing else matters. You cannot really move forward. If you engage, associate, or do business with somebody that do not share that value, that integrity, that key driver, eventually something's going to break, and it's going to be very painful. I try to do my best to kind of assess that at every move, at every turn, and I try to make sure our team is empowered to do the same. but we're not infallible. We sometimes erroneously engage with somebody that doesn't have that attribute, and eventually, that creates a lot of pain for everybody. So that's first and foremost. The second core value that we have is something we call intellectual horsepower. And intellectual horsepower means, not only that you have to really be a self-learner, a self-driven person to be able to engage in those difficult problem-solving instances in your life. You have to be able to have a mechanism where you can cope with the challenges and the acquisition of knowledge simultaneously. I don't know if that makes sense, but especially, for instance, just to give you an example, within the context of an incubation setting, a new entrepreneur, that comes in, that really translates not only on making sure that person has the commitment, he's not going to know everything, but has a commitment to become the best at what he's doing with that vertical and absorbing and seeking enough and as much knowledge as possible to get that level of proficiency and insight. But it also means, more importantly, that you have the obsession to make it work. A lot of our early stage entrepreneurs ask me about work balance. And I said, well, work balance is something you need to look at before you select what startup you're going to be in, right? Because for me, work balance is just being happy, It doesn't, I have my family. I love doing things with our kids, traveling and all that. So but
you also have a very entrepreneurial family. I think you probably have board meetings over the dinner table half the time.
It is very true. But oddly enough, out of our 5 kids, really no one wanted to be an entrepreneur because they saw how hard we worked, and now we have at least 2 entrepreneurs, and the kids are growing, and that's changing. So I'm very proud of them. Anyway, jump into intellectual horsepower side. So having that intensity, dedication, obsession to make things work, because it's going to take much more work and the passion, right, to make it work. The third core value is business acumen. And I know you're very familiar with that term, but just to add a little bit more clarity from our perspective, is being able to understand how actors in a model, meaning business, vendors, clients, and so on, all those actors in your business model that you develop have to really benefit. And if one of those breaks down and dies, if you will, the system breaks, right? So you have to be able to understand that, because you can become really good at something like McDonald's. They're very good at selling, and then selling kids food that is probably not good for them, and they start getting obese and having problems. So McDonald's actually realized that, and they now, I believe, are working on how to continue to grow their brand and the product line without killing your customers. Not that they're killing the customers, but you know what I mean. You just have a good understanding of that, right? How you have to have a truly sustainable business, not just from a financial point of view, but from everything else that matters to keep your customers happy, healthy, and making progress.
And coming back for more.
Yeah. And then the other part of business acumen that we emphasize is how to understand what makes the different actors in that model engage with you. How do you incentivize them? How do you make them realize the value proposition? So it deals a little bit more with the behavioral sciences part of that, but in a way that intersects with the business acumen that a lot of us have innately, perhaps, but a lot of us then still need to learn more about. And then the last one is humbleness and humility.
Oh, love that.
And that is the only one that is not part of our, again, Fortune 500 US dictionary, competencies dictionary. And I think the reason for that is because sometimes it's seen as weakness. When you see people make it to the top within big institutions, usually they have a very strong character, a lot of self-confidence. And that's great. But also I've seen some amazing leaders, including, in our military, that are humble enough to grow their teams, to elevate others, to develop their direct reports. It's just great to be witness of that, right? And so within the context of entrepreneurs, which is probably going to apply to some of the things you have been doing, is really from Mother Teresa, who's a saint within our Catholic faith. She wrote a little booklet, and one page talks about humbleness. And to be truly humble, you just need to know yourself, right? And if you are truly humble, and if somebody gives you praise, somebody tells you, hey, you are the best, you are so awesome, and start building you up, intentionally or just naturally or instinctively. Usually that happens because they want something from you, right? Not all the time, but that could be somebody with ill or non-wholesome intent can actually manipulate you that way, right? Yeah. But if you are truly humble, you really know who you are, and so that praise will never cloud your vision. You're never going to make that bad decision because of that. And entrepreneurs have very high highs and very low lows, right? So that really helps us manage that, specifically when you receive toxic feedback, criticism, at the same time, because you are truly humble and you truly know yourself and know who you are, that will never kill your spirit, right? So that really helps us attenuate that phenomena that we see in very early stage. We say that every company, every startup to make it has to first die 3 times. And so you can just imagine the roller coaster of emotions, right?
Yeah, that's right. Kidding every day, right? Almost.
Yeah, sometimes.
I love that last one. It reminds me of a Patrick Lencioni in his book, and he says the ideal team player is humble, hungry, and smart, right? So that's where I love that humble part. That's awesome.
That's I agree 100%.
Yeah. So let's switch gears a tiny bit here. And one of the things that we ask every entrepreneur, right, is what's your vision? Where are you taking your company? What's your 5 to 10 year moonshot? Mm-hmm. What is your big, hairy, audacious goal? Mm-hmm. What's your BHAG?
So being this my life 2.0, again, I wanted to have the market, the customer base guide our growth. Mm-hmm. And so that's why all of a sudden, we're sitting in the oldest building in downtown. Now, heritage preservation is now part of our practice because saving these old buildings and opening them to the public allows the communities to invest in things that no one can take away from them. And that's their heritage, their culture. And so we need to save, this old building is only 160 years old, let's say. You go to Europe when you travel, or Washington, D.C., even Latin America, you're talking about 400-year-old buildings, right?
Yeah.
Or structures. And so we in Texas, I think we need to get better at leveraging heritage preservation in support of community development. So we have that practice. We have our incubator. We have our educational track. And so, it's kind of hard to understand, but it's everything has a very specific purpose. We're sitting, we try to be very smart on how we leverage the efforts that we engage on or with. And so right now we're also sitting at one of the best sound recording studios in the 90-mile radius from here. And it's so awesome to be able to have that contrast of very high tech and very old, heritage based assets in the same place. And then to add to that is the good bourbon or a good scotch. Yeah. It's just amazing, right? How you bring those things together. So culture, a big challenge for small communities is attracting talent. So one of the things that we try to do is amplify the presence of intellectually rewarding experiences so that people that are a little bit more on on a different type of lifestyle, people that move from, Dallas, New York, whatever, they have an outlet.
Yeah.
To not an outlet just to experience, but an outlet to contribute to. And that really is what makes a community strong, having all the members of the community coming together and working on things that elevate the whole community. And just to point on kind of what's next. Right now, we're actually rapidly, but trying to do it in a very measured way, expanding our footprint into other states. We have had in the past projects in Africa, Europe, and Latin America, but it's getting really, really more kind of tilted to that side. So I think that's going to continue to grow, and we are just adding really good members to our team in a way that allows us to do so without having too many growing pains. And just having that really fundamentally well-structured package of methodologies and solutions in a way that is very easily transferred to younger individuals, younger members of our team. And but personally, I'm already working on my Life 3.0.
Nice.
And even though I'm gonna stay fully engaged until until I'm not able to do that. And really, there's a void. There's something that really, from an entrepreneurial innovation business development perspective, we can support, not only us, but our community can support entrepreneurs with strategy development, marketing, communications, fundraising support, planning, from a financial side, manufacturing, all these different things. Right? But the thing that still it's a little fuzzy is being able to develop optimum methods to deliver a service or a product in a way that is more science-based than just instinctively doing that. And that really deals more with behavioral sciences.
Yeah.
So I've been working for the last, since before COVID, on the development of a behavioral sciences research center that has two vectors. One deals with consumer sentiment, being able to understand that. And so that deals with, obviously, experimental economics, which is a big part of our practice now, and behavioral economics, which also deals with irrational behavior, and be able to just understand humans, a little bit better. So that's my life 3.0.
Well, Jose, to be able to have as your BHAG, bridging both our historic, or the history that entrepreneurs, communities live in, but then also bringing technology and then doing it in a way that is systematic, that is sustainable, and really pushes economic growth and human growth is pretty cool. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. We are Aggie Growth Hacks, and you have shared so much with us about your history and your passion for lifting entrepreneurs up. And quite frankly, thank you for being honest about some of the challenges that you've had. But all of us have to hack problems. All of us have to overcome them. What's one of your favorite personal hacks, or a book or a podcast or something that we can learn from you?
Yeah. So, let me talk about books. I have kind of two different set of books. Obviously, something that I wish I spent more time is reading the Bible, right? But I have, as you know, my wife, she's our faith warrior and defender. She's a defender of our faith.
100%.
And so I benefit from that, right? The writings of Saint Thomas Aquinas from a philosophical perspective, and Saint Augustine, and then some of the original writings about the great philosophers of our time. But as I started to kind of grow into my faith and grow into being at A&M, I kind of became very passionate about the management side, because you always crave what you don't have, right? And so had a great. I no longer read books. I read more like articles and white papers and so on. But Peter Drucker, or pronounced Peter Drucker, is the right pronunciation. His writings on management, his books are amazing. And then Organizing Genius. I don't know if you read it. It's pretty. It's already from the 90s, right? But it's such a great set of, and it's just case studies, but case studies that makes you understand how those, how you manage that. Because for us here in our community, as you know, it's very applicable. We have amazing brain power at A&M, right?
Yeah.
So how do you create those teams? How do you manage those expectations? And oddly enough, I have this book that I love, but it's very trivial. It's called Caffeine. It's only available in audiobook format. It's probably a 3-hour listen session. But, when you go to the airport in Houston, you can half and half.
What was the name of that?
Caffeine. It's the history of coffee and how it probably influenced the age of enlightenment. It's a,
love it.
If you like coffee, man, you have to do that. And obviously nowadays I do a lot of research on bourbon.
Yeah.
A lot of research. Hands-on research.
On bourbon. That's right. Okay, so question number 2, what is your favorite business hack, right? This could be a hack, it could be a book, it could be a podcast. What is your favorite hack?
I never share this with anybody, so I don't know if it's crazy or not, but it's when I have been working on a big problem for days, if not weeks. And then once I need to kind of make it click, it just feels like the right timing. I wait until everybody's asleep. There's no interruptions, no emails coming in. My phone is peaceful. Let's see, maybe 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And I just write an email with this prescribed solution in a very succinct fashion, very, very short, maybe a page and a half, bullet list and all that. And somehow just clarity comes to mind and all that. And I don't do it often enough because I'm getting older and I have to sleep, more than 3-4 hours a night. But that is a great tool that I use. It's almost like pushing yourself to the precipice of. Not that I need stress to do that, but I need to really, the Lord gave me that gift of putting myself, fabricating that situation for me, of being enlightened to just tackle a very big problem, and then I send that to the team that I, on real time, allocate to that particular project. It may be a new startup, it may be, and I don't want to brag, but man, those are really powerful. Everybody, the next day they start getting those emails saying, "Oh, this is great, and yes, we're driven," and so on and so forth.
Yeah, just kind of stirring the pot and being succinct about it,
and being very clear and clear as you can be within a page, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think when it comes also to business, I don't know if it's a hack, but just naturally or instinctively, I realized that you really need to bring people together, creating just memorable experiences to really advance a cause, right? So that has been such a gift. And that's why we have the Bourbon Conversation event every 3 months. It's just amazing how that conversation goes, and the people that have come from not only other cities, but other countries to be part of that experience. It's a great little treasure we have here.
Very
in our
cool.
community.
Well, Jose, what's the best bit of business advice that you've been given, and how have you applied it?
I've been given what I will call a moment of truth type of advice twice, or maybe once, and then this follow-up was wholesome advice. But the first one was one of my clients. He was one of the top, I would say, one of the top 3 leadership development gurus in the world. I mean, this guy was, I think he's still alive. He back then was coaching people like, the CEOs of Oracle and Novartis, that level of people, right? And I remember he was my client, and we were doing some strategy development work. And after our session, he pulled me aside and he goes, "Jose, I'm going to help you today." I said, "Oh, awesome." He goes, "Jose, I think you are too uptight. You need to relax a little bit."
Whoa!
And I go, "Wow, really?" And he goes, "Yeah, just everything is fine. Just relax." And I go, and I didn't know how to think about it. I was 29. I was 35 years old or something like that. So I went back to my room. This was in San Francisco. I went back to my room and I called my business partner back then. He was based out of Savannah, and I go, "Hey mate," we were called mates. "Hey mate, do you think I'm uptight?" And he goes, "Oh no, man, you are the best. Don't worry." He kind of made me feel better, but I knew that I had to work on that, and it took me probably 20 years, and I'm still working.
Well,
on that.
I think you've done, because if y'all don't know Jose, I mean, like, he's as cool as a cucumber. It doesn't matter if the place is burning down around. Jose's like, we'll figure it out. Come on, let's go figure it out.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Well, you listened well.
and then the second piece of advice, very recently, somebody that I admire, he's the father of one of our great entrepreneurs at the incubator. He told me, "Jose, I want you to know that every morning you have a gift, and for you is being fearless, Because I always been very, very cautious, and I never want to offend people and all that. That day, that was again based in our faith. That conversation, having our Lord give you that fearless stand in life. I'm not gonna say that I achieved that, but I have the faith. And sometimes, especially when you're dealing with hard problems and when you travel overseas, you really need that. You need that faith, and you need to have the trust, right? So those kind of have been my best piece of advice, other than growing up, my dad, my mom, everybody, right?
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Jose. How can the Aggie Growth Hack community get in touch with you and support you moving forward?
Thank you for offering that. Just participating on the different events that we put together for the community. Well, first of all, get a hold of me. It's very easy. It's jose@adventgx.com. And if you look Jose Quintana locally on Facebook, I'd probably show up. my LinkedIn my handle is Jose Quintana. So it's pretty simple. Yeah, just being able to attend those events, not don't do it for me, but do it for you and your community. We have our software developers cartel, our bourbon conversations. We have it's called Pechacucha. It's like TED Talks on steroids. And one of the yearly events that I would love for our friends to attend is our upcoming Town and Gown event, and it's in November. I believe it's the 28th. I'll send you the actual date. But it's our 8th edition. We've been doing that for 5 years, but it is our eighth edition because of COVID and some other stuff we kind of had to rearrange. And is where we bring the town is obviously the leaders of our community, business leaders, our community leaders, law enforcement, everybody from that side. And then our gown represents our university. So all the faculty members, researchers, students. So we do that. It's a kind of a limited space event, but every year we honor an entity at A&M. Yeah, last year was McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship. They were our showcase entity, and this year is going to be the Bush School. We're honoring them because they just had their big anniversary. And then it's a kind of a dinner and a show, but we also get to highlight nonprofits. It's not a fundraising event. Mm-hmm. It's really more of a celebration.
Yeah.
But we do want to always try to acknowledge those individuals that are doing great for our community. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and some people dance, have great music, and great food.
Jose, thank you so much for coming on. It was really great having you share your knowledge with the Aggie Growth Hack community. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for having me. And you're friends from a long time, and seeing you grow has been an amazing journey. It's been fun, wasn't it? It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, so much fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jose.
Need some more bourbon, though, I think.
Yeah. We'll jump into that right away.
That's right.
Well, how about that, Ags? Was that some good bull or what? I know that I got a lot out of talking with Jose. What were your favorite things that you took away from that, Greg?
Well, I think one of my favorite things was just the setting. Podcast people, sorry you didn't get to see it, but go check out our website. Check out the YouTube version of our episode talking with Jose. I mean, if you've ever been to downtown Bryan, and that's one of the coolest things that Jose and Joan and his team, they've really helped to revitalize downtown Bryan. But they've got the Stafford Theater, and that has got a kick-ass little recording studio up in the back. So if you're ever down there, check it out. I think that's number one. Number two is just Jose's passion, not only for entrepreneurship, but for technology. And I think that's really, it's not necessarily unique to entrepreneurs, but what I think is so cool is that Jose is constantly thinking about businesses and how do we get better? How do we use technology to make our lives better, to make better businesses, to make better communities, to make better families? And to be able to say, okay, how can we encourage, support, lift up any company that has anything to do with technology and connect them with other people that are passionate about technology, and then wrap that all up in entrepreneurship? It's super cool to see him, how he does it. And it's just amazing, all the ideas that are going on in that man's mind. Pretty exciting.
Oh, yeah. I fully agree, man. And I think that, well, one, I've known Jose for a really, really long time. I've known him since I came back to Aggie Land in 2001, right? So that kind of dates how long that I've known him.
When technology was DOS screens, right?
Right, exactly, right. No, not that bad, but he was always the coolest guy. You're like, what does he do? And no one ever knew what he kind of did, and I loved how he shared his journey with us, and really how the part that really spoke to me the most was how he said, you've got to be humble and you've got to have humility, right? In order to be a good business person. And I think that so hits the mark, and I think that knowing your target audience and knowing all of these things and serving people is great. And that's 100% what all of us entrepreneurs should be doing. but being humble about it is just so cool to hear that from Jose. And I just really took that away. And that was one of the things that I've read in Patrick Lencioni's book. And I mentioned that, I think, is the ideal team player, right? The ultimate team player. I'm not sure what the name of the book is now at the top of my head, but he says that you've got to be humble, hungry, and smart, right? That's the three things to be the ideal team player. So that just kind of keys right into that, what Jose said, that you've got to be humble and you've got to have humility in order to serve other people.
Well, Ags, that's going to do it for this episode of Aggie Growth Hacks. If you're not connected with Jose, do yourself a favor, connect with him. He's a man that is passionate about entrepreneurship. Heck, and if you're in Bryan, if you have not been back to Bryan in a long time, make sure you go down to Bryan, go to north end of Bryan, go see the beautiful job that he and his team have done on the ice house. That is such an awesome facility, and our community is better because of that. If you're not connected with Chris or myself or Aggie Growth Hacks on any of the socials, make sure you do that. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And make sure that you check out AggieGrowthHacks.com, where you can hear our previous 6 seasons of Aggie Growth Hack episodes, where we've talked with entrepreneurs, connected entrepreneurs, and got to know them and have them share their story.
We also want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship at Texas A&M University. Since 1999, the McFerrin Center for Entrepreneurship has served as the hub of entrepreneurship for Texas A&M. If you're an Aggie entrepreneur or even a wantrepreneur, head on over to their website to find a program that's right for you. Just go to aggiegrowthhacks.com/McFerrin right now. Well, Ags, join us next time when we connect with another great Aggie entrepreneur and learn how they hack their growth. Until then, I'm Chris Hunter.
And I'm Greg Martin. Thanks and gig 'em.